Hello and welcome back to the Double One Radio Gamescast. As always, I'm your host Ryan, and I'm joined today by my lovely duo of co-hosts, Brett
Hello!
and Wyatt.
What's going on?
It's been a very uneventful week in games development, which means we get to actually talk about the fun topics this time and not the bad news of Bobby Kotick.
So I don't have to cry this episode, is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to
Fantastic.
reprimand Activision yet again.
Thank God, that was getting so boring.
We probably
such an overdone
still
bit.
should, but...
We don't want to do overdone topics on this show.
All right, it's episode number 87. We are going into game fictions and atmosphere and how to establish a setting and a game franchise, especially in the context of things that are multimedia. Things like Halo having a book series, multiple book series. Games like The Witcher starting from book series. So things like that. Is everyone ready? Is everyone excited?
Yeah.
We're going to go into our small amount of news that we have, because it is very small.
Ryan's just ignoring me.
What do you want me to say to you saying yes? Why?
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. I'm just pointing out.
What do you want my response to be?
Your response, the response you had, which was none, was perfect.
I mean, I feel like that's what you say when people are just like, okay, we're ready. You just continue doing the thing, all right?
Okay.
So let's do the thing we do every week. I don't know why we all have the giggles today. It's something has happened.
It's post Thanksgiving giggles.
It is truly post Black Friday.
We don't have bad news to talk about, so it's time to actually be happy, I guess.
Hey, there is something pretty neat that I think that happened. Epic Games has acquired Harmonix. So Harmonix, for those who don't know, are a Rock Band studio. They've made tons of rhythm games, and I am excited to see what they do with Epic, because Fuser is a really cool project, but you can tell it did not have a very good budget.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want to see another Rock Band game, really badly.
Dude, we just got that Radiohead thing on the Epic Store too.
Yeah,
they could do,
yeah.
Crazy stuff with more art projects like that.
I think it's Kid A Amnesia.
Yeah.
So
I saw some of it. I need to play it, but it looks
looks very good. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting thing to see what they do with Harmonix going forward. I could see this being something related to Unreal Engine as well. Because I feel like there could be some cool potential for integrated music things in Unreal Engine that a lot of studios could find a use for. So I wonder if they're going to keep making games or if they're going to transition into an internal studio. Maybe both. Halo put out a live event.
They did.
That's sigh. After
So this is
saying
when I say
Halo.
there's no bad news. There's no news that I feel the need to throttle somebody over, but we do have news that is just disappointing. So Halo's Fracture Tenrai event, which on the last podcast we were all looking forward to, kind of sucks.
It's a fracture, all right.
They've spread out progression so that it is 1 week every month for the next 6 months on a 30-level battle pass, and you can maximum get 7 levels per week that it is active, which is only 1 week a month.
Yes. And if you're confused by those numbers, we're not going to explain them to further our point that it's a little
It's
stupid.
very confusing. It's very strange. The system, they launched this on Thanksgiving week as well, which means the studio is on holiday, from what I've heard. As they should be, right? Because the game just launched. Give them a break. However, this means the problems with the event have had no response whatsoever.
It's
so
it's not like it's going to be here for next week. It's just this week, and then I guess you'll see the fixes in a month from now if we decide to do any.
Well, also what this means, right? It is that if you don't get your 7 tiers in a period of time, they throttle it so that if you miss it, you won't be able to get all the way through that.
So it is exactly
battle path.
the problem that they said they were avoiding with the permanent battle passes, except now it is relegated to these events. And the marketing scummy part of this is the armor they have continually used in the marketing and in all the icons in game for the armor set is not the armor that is free.
No.
The armor that's free, still looks, I think, okay. It's not amazing, but it's got a neat look to it. It looks different. But it's not the classical samurai helmet that they've been showing off.
It's
In
also
every
not the
promotional
swords they've
thing.
been showing off.
Also not the swords they've been showing off. Also not the colors they've been showing off. In fact, there are no colors for this armor set.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of very strange decisions going on here that are clearly financially incentivized, but I don't think this is making them money, is my bet. I feel like they have lost so much goodwill with this set of decisions that the people who would be willing to buy these things are not buying them. So
Also, this is less of a Tenrai or a fracture issue, but more just a general like customization problem. Is that I'm way less motivated to get all of this armor because I can't mix it with my other stuff.
Exactly.
Because it has its own core. I do not understand why we talked about this already, but I do not understand why there are different Spartan cores. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, I get the cores, but why are accessories and colors locked? Is the thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, why are all these pieces not interchangeable? Because they kept touting millions of customization options. We have not very much at all right now.
Yeah, you have maybe like mathematically like a couple hundred, I guess. If that, just because they're so separated and like even like color is locked behind cores and it was pure comedy for me to finish my weekly challenges only to get a color scheme for the Mark 7 armor, which has, as of right now, almost no actual armor customization, and not a color scheme for the armor core that you get from the Tenrai event that was happening on the week that you complete the challenges. It's just like, why? What?
Yeah.
I just don't understand. It could be avoided if it was available for everything. It just doesn't make sense to me.
They are so lucky that their core gameplay is so goddamn.
I know.
That's something I really
They're so lucky they accidentally made a good game.
I'm so happy the game is good because I'm really enjoying playing it. But the progression system makes the end of a match disappointing, right? Because you see that end screen, you're forced to view all the progression stuff. You go back to the main menu and it looks like there's an advertisement on your screen, and it's just it's the kind of thing where it makes the game feel cheap, even though it clearly wasn't to make, and it just isn't. It's not super fun to progress that way. Halo Reach had it solved.
Yep.
So I don't know.
I mean, you know what?
It's a downside.
4 had it solved. 4 had it solved.
I mean, yeah, that was pretty much if not the same, a very similar system.
MCC's had it mostly solved, so it's just a question of like
they added more customization to games that are 10 plus years old, and it still was a better customization system.
Yeah,
and it's like if I want to go look like a cool Spartan, I'm probably gonna load up Master Chief Collection and not
at this point,
Infinite.
More options.
Especially they went crazy on Halo 3 customization. Like you can make some pretty cool looking Spartans in Halo 3.
Especially because I don't know about you guys, but I have started to feel the map fatigue at this point. Not like badly, but I think it has become very noticeable that because you can't choose the mode you want to do, because the map selection seems to be 100% random. Even though there are like a decent number of maps in this beta, and I think we have all the maps we have for launch right now, but you just don't see some of them so at all, and because the mode doesn't get picked. So I know launch site is a map. I've only played on it like once.
And it's arguably, in my opinion, the best one.
I know, I love launch site because
really
the one map I played on it was really fun.
So have you guys been playing, like, I know it's been Thanksgiving recently, but have you guys been playing on and off since last episode?
I played like the first day with the Tenrai event.
Okay. It's probably good for both me and 343 that since I've been at my parents' house, I have the worst internet known to man, which means I couldn't play the game. So I've been on a bit of a break, which means I haven't really gotten that map fatigue yet, just because I've been on it's a long break for me. I'll put it that way. So I'm, I am excited to get back to playing it again, just because I've been on a break, a forced break. But if I'd kept playing through that, like if I had like snuck in 1 or 2 matches here and there in between seeing people, like I would probably feel pretty differently. Like I'm pretty excited to play it. Like when this episode ends, I'm probably gonna hop on and play a couple matches. But
yeah, I get what you're saying.
I need I really need that game mode picker because it's just
Yes.
like it's
It
almost
also makes
all.
challenges easier. It also makes
It's
challenges easier to complete.
not even just like more reasonable because it does. I don't think like we make the joke. I don't think any of us actually think that there's malicious code in the game that makes it. Oh, Wyatt
I don't know,
has
man.
total control.
I
You're
don't
never gonna
know,
get a total
man.
control game because
I'm
then.
only half kidding. Only half kidding.
Because it does feel that way sometimes, but it shouldn't. You should just be
I
able
mean,
to. Oh, I
that's
want to.
the thing with doing random generation in a game. Most games don't do random generation; they do pseudo-random because they have luck
Yeah.
protection built in to prevent this situation from happening.
Yeah, exactly.
Where we end up
Um,
playing like not seeing a map for 100 matches, which is like close to what I've done. Is with Launch Site. I've played
yeah.
once on that map, and I've probably played like 30 hours at least, probably way more than that at this point, over the past couple of weeks. So it's weird to not see those maps.
It will be very funny in 11 days when from when we're recording when this game fully releases. It'll be just such the best joke ever told in gaming history for just absolutely nothing to change with the multiplayer when the full game releases. Can you imagine if
Because
they
I feel
still
like
don't have the game mode
the
picker?
main change that needs to happen is mode picking. That is the thing that I think is giving me the most kind of fatigue with playing the game, is not being able to like go play oddball when I want to and not play it when I don't want to, right?
It makes it still feel like a beta. Like
it feels very beta from that alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think I said this last time, but I think having that game mode choosing ability, honestly, like because we've talked about like, oh, the elites in Halo 1 are too stupid. What are you doing? And then they just like raised the health and everyone called their AI better. I feel like this has potential to be like, oh my god, that this progression is so terrible. These challenges suck, and then they just give you the ability to pick game modes, and it's like, oh wow, these challenges
It's
are
not
so
as bad.
easy to do now.
Yeah.
I have a feeling it has that potential.
I still think some of the weapon ones and vehicle ones are in a bad spot.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Because you can't.
You know what?
I have yet to find a Wraith that was rideable in any map. But
and you know what too? Like, I'm not gonna say this is like the perfect solution because it isn't, but we're talking about like small tweaks that would make it better, right? I honestly think if they just added a way, I mean, they totally can. If/when they add a way to reward you for medals, if you kept the progression exactly the same, but you rewarded us for the medals that we got, I would be so much happier with like the current kind of progression through the battle pass if they just gave you a little bit for getting.
Because I saw a suggestion that was just add 1% of your score, and because your score is usually between 1,000 and 3,000. So that would mean you generally get like 10 to 30 additional XP a match, which isn't like a huge number, but it feels
it's pretty substantial.
It's good enough, right? Like that's a number that doesn't feel like it would break the system.
It feels like you're still like, I mean, even when they changed the practice makes perfect thing from like every 2 or 3 matches to just, you know, every match, right? You're still ultimately probably gaining the same amount of experience that way, but the fact that they're
But I'm
cutting it up
not
into a
playing
little
it.
bit-
I never get a match where I'm not earning anything. That's the
Exactly.
important thing.
Bar go up more often.
It's
therefore
not.
brain good.
It's. I really like. I feel like like they are giving you not enough XP, right? But the way that you dole out your XP in some cases is more. In many cases, is more important than how much you're actually getting.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you're being rewarded, but you're still not being given that much, it's so much more satisfying than just dulling it out in a way that's really slow, and it feels way more slow as a result.
All right. So I think we're gonna cut the Halo talk it there because we have some other stuff to talk about. First thing, we have 2 001 radio shows coming up soon. We have the Guardians of the Galaxy Games Club, which will be out later this week, finally, and we have a Games Pass Games Club coming out hopefully sometime next week. Is I think the plan right now, where we're gonna go through a series of 4 games on Game Pass that we each picked, and we're gonna play an hour to 2 hours of them. We've done this prior to the show, and then we're going to record it book club style and go around the table and talk about the 4 games that we played and give some thoughts and opinions and say if we think we're going to complete them, that kind of thing. Be a fun little thing to do.
See, I was just about to say we should call that a games club instead of a books club, but
it's Games Pass Games Game Pass Games Club is the name of it. So
Game Pass Club game.
Game Pass Club game.
Book Pass?
Book Pass Game Club.
Yes.
All right. Now that we've gotten the word spaghetti out, so Battlefield
For now.
had a head of design.
Oh.
It did?
It did. Who has left following
That game had
2042's
designers?
release.
Mhm.
So this person, I'm not going to name them because I don't want to throw shade, and I do think this doesn't necessarily reflect poorly on this person, but more on DICE's and EA's decision to hire them for this position.
Yeah.
They hired someone whose almost all of their game development experience was at King, the mobile games developer responsible for Candy Crush.
Okay.
And then they were hired as the head of design on Battlefield.
For their new mainline Battlefield game that's supposed to save the franchise.
This person was hired in 2019, so this is the only Battlefield game they've worked on. This is the only
And it shows.
non-mobile game they've worked on.
And it shows.
And it shows.
I have to ask, what do you guys think the thought process was?
How much, how much illegal paraphernalia was in the room when they were making this decision? Because this is like some crackhead stuff. I don't know how.
Well, I was about to say, I think the better question is how much alcohol did they have before designing this game?
Like, legitimately, it's just every single decision made around it. It's like there's no just fix this thing and it'll be better. Just fix this thing. It's like just everything is wrong with it, and it just everything I hear about it, because this is the first time that I'm hearing about this. It shows. It's no correct decision was made, and I think the worst decision of all was to actually friggin' release it, because honestly, they should have.
It's totally a savable game too, right? Like, push this game back a couple of months and just rethink. Even if you have to keep the specialist, maybe rethink how items are assigned to them, and at least have a class division. Like, nothing here was unfixable, but they launched it in an awful state.
I don't know. I kind of disagree. I feel like for a Battlefield game, there are so many core things that are wrong that
but at least the game could have been good, right? Like, it doesn't. I'm not saying it would be a great Battlefield game, but I'm saying the game could have come out and been well received for the most part.
I've said this. Go for it.
They made the mistake of saying that this was going to be like the mainline thing. We gave DICE a couple extra years. This is going to recuperate the loss of fan base that we had.
What they're talking about is
Battlefield
Portal.
5 came out.
What they're talking about is Portal. I've said this multiple times. The best thing for them to do at this point, like, just completely forget about the 2042 aspect of this game. Sell Portal as an individual game for like $25-$30 and just put all of your effort into that, making more content for that.
Yeah. I think instead of saying that any part of this was going to be the next mainline Battlefield game, I think they should have just hardlined it and just have it be like, oh yeah, here's our Battlefield side. We've because clearly in 4, 1, and 5 they've been trying to do this weird like MLG small squad based tactical Battlefield game for no reason for like years now.
Hardline had it too.
Just say that this is going to be that. It doesn't make sense, but just say that this is going to be that, and then guess what? No one's going to play it anyway, so no one's going to be upset when it's garbage. But now,
or the people that do play it are people that want that, right?
Exactly. But now you have clearly the game was designed for what is it, Hardwired or whatever, the not battle royale mode that they have. Clearly, Hazard Zone. Yeah. The whole there's so many like H names in Battlefield, I can't remember them anymore. The whole like all the things, the specialists, the gunplay, the who gives a crap, all of it was clearly designed for that. I think it should have just been that, and it unfortunately they attached all these expectations to it by saying that we're giving DICE extra time to complete it to make sure that the next mainline title is good. They should have just had Hazard Zone as its own thing, whatever, $20, side story, cops and robbers, hardline style thing, whatever, with specialist stuff like and at the same time, it's not a new Battlefield mainline game, but look, just like Wyatt said, Portal at the same time for all those people who are mad at us for making open world Rainbow Six Siege for some reason. Now we have all of your old favorite maps, and we've MCC'd them all together in one big custom game thing. Yep. For $30. You're telling me I have to pay $10 for DLC? I don't care. It was $30 and it's all the things, and they're adding more. I don't even care at that point. It's better than this because this is garbage.
This just it's not working.
I mean,
It's terrible.
the biggest
This is so concerning.
mistake was calling it a Battlefield game because it's not anymore.
It's not.
With the exception of Portal, which is very Battlefield, right up to it having a really bad launch.
Of course.
It's not a Battlefield game. Like when we were playing the beta, I was like, nothing about this. I keep saying it's an unholy combination of what was it called? Ground War from Modern Warfare 2019 and Battlefront 2. That's what it feels like. That's not a good thing. That's
No.
not
Yeah.
a good thing to be calling a Battlefield game. Or no, Battlefront 1, because that had no classes also, and that was just a giant like
That was just your star
clusterfuck
cards.
and just mess. So
All right.
we don't like Battlefield here is the point of this
No,
discussion.
we like
don't
Battlefield. We
We
don't like
we don't
2042.
2042 here. is
But guess
the
what?
point.
We're gonna play it for you guys someday soon, so don't worry.
Yeah,
You'll be able to
that's
catch
probably
our
also
horrible
coming
sadness.
sometime, not this week, but the week after, most likely.
Don't say we never do anything for you.
I don't know. I this can't be for. This isn't for anyone. This is for us to experience this travesty in a way that doesn't give us damage, permanent damage.
Would you say it has the potential to be therapeutic in a sense?
Yes.
All right.
I guess.
All right. Let's move on. So I saw, this isn't news, but I saw this and was just like, I didn't know they were still doing this. Age of Empires 3 just got DLC.
Sorry?
Didn't 4 just come out?
4 did just come out. Age of Empires 3 Definitive Edition just got a new civilization.
Okay. Priorities,
Or
I
was received
guess.
well, wasn't it?
What? Yeah. So apparently what is going on is that there are 3 different development teams right now for Age of Empires. There's the team on 4, there's a team on Age of Empires 3 Definitive, and there's a team on Age of Empires 2 Definitive, and they are all independently working on these three games.
So I see this
and still making
as,
DLC.
I see this as Microsoft got a positive response to the new Civilization game, and they're like, okay, we want to make this a bigger Microsoft exclusive. Let's put a bunch of teams on the franchise and like try and make it, bigger. Because it's like, oh, here's a franchise that we can finally cling on to that isn't called Forza or Halo or Gears.
Age of Empires 3 is like a 15 to 20-year-old game at this point. I want to lay that out there for anyone who hasn't played it before.
Right. And it got a definitive edition like
3 years ago, maybe. I think.
Yeah, something like that. I remember I bought 3 on Steam for the nostalgia because it was really cheap, and then I saw that there was a definitive edition like 2 days later. I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
I believe it's on Game Pass, so I think you can pick it up.
That would make sense.
Because 4 is on Game Pass at least. If 3 isn't, 4 is, and you can go play 4 because 4 has also gotten very good reception. So it's just a neat thing that this old franchise is getting a lot of love, and I'm sure this is selling to a very small audience most likely, because I can't imagine it is that many people, but I'm betting all of them are very dedicated. I bet it's like Ace Combat games.
Exactly.
Where there's nothing else like it, so you're gonna play it. All right. The last
one bit of news.
Oh, go ahead.
I thought we were gonna move on. You might want to cover this, but I recently learned that the new Dragon Age game, Dragon Age 4, whatever it's called, has lost its 3rd creative director.
Yeah.
Yes. So this happened last week, but it was not.
Right.
It was like, I think it was on that day that we found out, so I didn't have it on my list. This is concerning.
3.
But
3.
So this is one of those situations where it is legitimately difficult to know if this is a really bad thing or not. The main reason it seems like a bad thing is because of BioWare's history. Yeah. Because before, in a vacuum, people in this position leaving games isn't uncommon because they finish their job like 2 years before a game is ready to launch.
Creative director is very much in the pre-production phase. Like that's where they.
Yeah, because once you hit full production, you're gonna have your content list and know what you need to have done.
People will come to you for like advice and direction on small things, but the bigger picture is already done in terms of your.
And if they were mainly like a writer, or something, then writing is done, right? Like writing is not gonna. It has to all be done very early on because you need to know what content has to be included. So this is a difficult situation to know 100% without knowing what that person's job fully detailed. It's hard to know how bad this is, but because it's BioWare, it's probably
we can only
bad.
assume the worst. Yeah.
It's also because there's been 3, which is it just feels like okay. First guy does things, sets up all all like the background stuff, creative director things. Okay, setting, style, all these things. All right, set in stone. Okay, cool, guys. I'll see you. Good luck with the rest of the project. I believe in you. You got like a couple more months left. It's definitely not going to get delayed, right? Okay, see you guys later. And then it gets delayed.
EA gotta leave.
Exactly. And then you bring on a new guy. And it's like, oh well, this guy. What's all this? This doesn't make any sense. Okay, we're gonna start all over with my stuff. And then the same thing. Okay, guys, great. A couple months left, and they do it again. With another guy who says, "What's all this? This doesn't make any sense. This is how the other guy did it. We're gonna have to do how I do it now. So I have to do everything all over again." It doesn't sound good.
No, well, also it's not just that they've been hemorrhaging creative directors. The project has switched its vision many times too. I remember when they were first in like early pre-production, they were talking about it's going to be much smaller scale than Inquisition, but it's also going to be a lot more dense with content and choices and stuff like that. And we're going to really bring back that like sense of like player choice and stuff like that. And then it's switched direction again to be more of like a live service type of thing. With like multiplayer elements and stuff, and then I think Anthem happened, and then they're like, "Oh crap, change course again!" And now it's more, from what we understand, now it's more of a single player experience, but it's probably going to be monetized in some way, is what we've heard. So it's not just that the game has lost creative directors left and right; it's also changed its direction left and right.
If it ever comes,
I don't trust anything that is said about this game until we have gameplay footage. That's the main thing. So yeah, we'll see when that happens. Maybe the Game Awards, we'll see something, but I'm not.
I'm sure people will be very excited.
We'll get back to you guys on this topic
in a week.
001's third anniversary at this rate.
Yep.
And we'll be talking about how we saw one teaser trailer 2 years ago.
Yeah.
We've seen like behind the scenes concept art a dozen times, but
we saw a little polygonal player model do a little combat role here and there.
All right. So the last bit of cool news are technically 001 Radio's Game of the Year for last year. 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim is coming to Nintendo Switch.
That's a very good Switch game.
That is a good Switch game.
I wouldn't know a thing about it, but I'm going to agree with you.
Hey, all right, you would probably like this game.
I would.
I think so.
You're a righty boy.
Are you sure?
You would like things if you gave them a chance.
You're also a fan of sci-fi, Wyatt, and this game is like the biggest love letter to sci-fi that there has ever been.
Okay.
It has every sci-fi trope.
It's absolutely,
and it deconstructs all of them.
Has like 20 tropes. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's very good. It's a very narrative-heavy game. There's not a lot of actual gameplay. There is like a gameplay mode, but it is relatively basic. It's fun, but it's not. You're not going to spend 20 hours doing the gameplay. You're going to spend 20 hours listening to the dialogue and watching the cutscenes because that's the kind of game it is, and it's really good. But you got to deal with that. So I'd highly recommend this when it comes out on Switch in a year.
Okay,
a full year. This is I think December 4th next year.
All right.
So it's a while, but
I don't know why they would announce it now, but
that is the one question I have for them. Is like why.
The best thing you can do with like a Switch port is just like shadow drop it and just surprise everyone.
Yeah.
Like announce it and drop it on the same day. That's like the best thing you can do in a situation.
Because this was paired with the announcement that the game had sold 500,000 copies, which I think was way more than they had estimated for it. I think this game was like estimated to sell.
That's good for them.
Not a lot, because it was a small team over a very long time. Yeah, it's having some success, which is great. All right, moving on. We're probably, I think, at least Wyatt and I, we tried to do this last year, might try to do a Game Awards stream. We'll see if that's in the cards, because that does take a lot of setup. So We'll figure out if that's doable. But if it is,
also, if everyone's schedule can align.
Yeah, that's the main thing, is making sure that the schedule is aligned for the Game Awards, and that the Game Awards isn't going to stream a bunch of licensed stuff. Because they do that quite often. Usually it's not a problem, but
and oftentimes whenever we stream anything with Jeff, the stream kind of like craps itself after the shoes come on because it just can't handle his kicks. So
thanks, Jeff.
Well, you see, the actual story of that is every time Jeff has been on screen and we streamed something with Jeff there, I have been in Louisiana at my grandparents' house. So that's why.
Coincidence?
I don't know
Jeff's
how.
shoes have the magical ability to send Ryan to Louisiana every single
why
time.
That's why I'm always hyping up his kicks, because they have magic powers that most people just don't even understand.
As soon as his kicks are shown to me, I just wake up in Louisiana. It's
it's horrible.
It's like a sleeper agent type thing.
You have like a hangover thing where you just wake up in Louisiana with a tiger in your bathroom.
My activation code phrase is Jeff Keighley's kicks. All right. Now it's time to move on to our actual show for the day. We've got... So I want to start this discussion off by bringing up a franchise very near and dear to, I think, both mine and Brett's heart. That's Gundam.
Let's go, baby!
See, the reason when I pitched this topic to people, I was like, oh, it's going to be like Halo and The Witcher. No, I really want to talk about Gundam.
All right. I'm here. I'm all ears.
Because
I'm gonna log off for the night. So see ya.
Good one.
And specifically, Gundam Breaker.
Yes.
Because I don't know if anyone aside from Brett and I that listens to this podcast has heard of Gundam Breaker. Gundam Breaker is a game where you build your Gundam set and it turns into a robot that then you take on missions and fight things.
Mm-hmm.
Gundam Breaker 3 is one of the best games I've ever played and still is.
Legitimately. It's because there's that thing with fan service, right? Where if you have too much of it, or like it's like a weird execution of it, it feels wrong, and it's like, I feel like pandered to or whatever. No, I'm not gonna lie. When I show up in my little plastic man who has every single usable weapon of like 27 missile packs that I could possibly fit on his arms, and Shining Gundam comes out as a boss and it plays the music from the show, I kind of love it a little bit, and it's like it's the best, and I'm gonna finish the whole game, and I did, because the whole thing is just fan service. It's amazing. It's amazing. That's the genre for that game. But
not obnoxious fan service. It seems
it is an action RPG.
Very annoying.
It's an action RPG where the fan service is the loot drops being the crazy cool weapons from the show.
Exactly.
That's the type of fan. We're not talking like fan services and it's alluding to storylines or no. It's you kill a boss and you get a Trans Am and you get really excited because now you glow and you can teleport. So
it's you can move 3 times faster and all your weapons do like 3 times damage or something like that. So it's not just like, oh, there's
this crazy particle effects. Oh, it's great.
Do you recognize him? It's like you can be the shining finger that you want to see in the world, Wyatt. And if that doesn't sound amazing to you, I don't know what.
And you can take the shining finger and attach it to a Zaku too, and run around looking like the doofus that you are.
Exactly.
You have me a shining finger.
I do just this like mild like 15-second tangent. I did actually play it again recently, and I did not realize that you can just you know Ball, Ryan?
Yeah, I know Ball.
Good old Ball. You can put the ball turret as a head, and so I made a guy that has the ball turret as a head, and it's amazing just juggling people with my head that is a giant, like comparatively to my body, like 20-foot long, like just one single cylinder, just blasting people and juggling them in the air with it. It's incredible.
It is amazing. Now, Brett, what I wanted to talk about specifically with Gundam, so that is one of the Gundam games. That's one of the ones that's really good. It's unfortunately not available regularly in America.
Yes.
Because licensing is a nightmare. You can import it in English from PlayAsia or the Singapore Oceanic PSN store. So it is acquirable relatively easily and legally. None of it's illegal, but it is a pain to get. There is a Gundam Breaker that exists that is legal in America and easy to acquire called New Gundam Breaker.
Don't talk about it.
And I want to bring this game up because it is an example of taking a great thing and just completely losing what made it good. In every possible way, akin to Battlefield 2042.
Oh, wow.
It is a situation where they look at all this amazing stuff they had in this past game. They're like, oh, we were able to sell in that past game. Like, we could sell someone $5 for a new set that they could unlock in the game and play with, right? And take the parts out of. Now they're just like, okay, well, you can't customize your stuff individually anymore.
They have like classes of frames or whatever, right?
Yeah, so you can't customize your stuff individually anymore. You can't do the crazy customization. The paint editor is now much worse. So all the fan service just went out the window. Right?
Mhm.
Now all you have is a fan service of a fighting game where you get to see your character fight another character, right? In this situation, you've just got your Gundam and then your other Gundam that you might like, but now you can't do any of the cool stuff of like combining a Trans Am and the Victory
Can't kit
Gundam.
bash.
So you can't do the crazy kit bashing. This is why establishing fiction in your franchise is very important, because Gundam is a franchise, the TV show franchise, is not about kit bashing, right? But
No.
Gundam as a property, with the model kits that you can buy, that I have like 6 of at this point sitting around that I need to do, is about kit bashing and is about building things. So when you got to play to that in a game that is about building things, right? And when you don't, you lose that audience.
Ryan, I would like to congratulate you for making the most roundabout metaphor and example for this subject physically possible, because that is kind of amazing and very true.
Look, I had to find a way to make this as complicated as possible.
You just if I have a feel if Wyatt understood what this was going into it, he now has no idea what anyone is going to talk about next.
I know.
He's completely you've killed the poor man.
So you're led into this issue where you have to respect what your franchise is about, and this is a thing that we've talked about a couple of times in other episodes as like side things. We brought this up a lot when Cyberpunk was coming out. Of like Cyberpunk, the one thing that Cyberpunk really got right was nailing that cyberpunk fantasy until you looked deep enough to realize you can't customize your character after character creation.
Yeah.
You can't get the crazy prosthetics. A lot of the really cool prosthetics that they advertise don't work well and aren't very fun. And it had a bunch of those issues of just like the class fantasy that you should have of Cyberpunk game was there in theory, but not actually working. Right, where bugs and issues were preventing it from being what it should be. So if you were going in expecting that cyberpunk fantasy from the tabletop games, you were not getting that, and that's kind of the big dichotomy there, is because they specifically advertised that game as an RPG first and foremost. They kept repeating on and on about how it wasn't a shooter, it was an RPG, right?
And the most immersive RPG at that.
Yes,
they're specifically emphasizing it.
And then it comes out, and we're left with a shooter that is pretty good as a shooter, right? But as soon as you start to take a look into the RPG systems, it falls apart when you realize if you go the hacker route, most of the things don't work except the one thing which kills everyone instantly.
So
there's
your
balance,
game, ladies and gentlemen.
Look, we're still holding out hope that Cyberpunk gets proper fixes.
In like a year.
They did delay those fixes until next year. So
I keep hearing that it's like in the middle of a comeback right now or something, but like...
Well, so what happened is it went on sale for $10 on most platforms. And people have said that $10 is the good price range for playing Cyberpunk and not feeling gypped.
That's an insult more than
true.
anything.
But I mean, it is true, right? Like, if you want to play a Cyberpunk game, a game in that kind of setting, and you want... Because there isn't anything else to fit that aside from Deus Ex, right? There's nothing else. I Divine Cybermancy maybe, but that game is a flaming pile of incomprehensible.
If you're schizophrenic, you will enjoy that game. Otherwise, good luck.
It is worth pointing out that I paid full price for Cyberpunk, and I really enjoyed myself with it. But
yeah, that's what I'm saying, right? Well, I agree with Wyatt.
I'm not an exception. I'm not an exception.
I think we bought it on PC. That's an important note, and PC had the least of the issues.
It's still, and I'll also say that my run. Here's the crazy thing: my run was pretty smooth in terms of bugs, which, if you know anything about me, is shocking.
Yeah, very shocking.
I played probably one of the most buggy games that came out in 2020, and it went relatively fine. And then I played Ghost of Tsushima, probably one of the
Most polished.
And I had so many issues.
I mean, Wyatt, would it surprise you for me to tell you that I played Cyberpunk? I had far more bugs playing Guardians of the Galaxy than Cyberpunk, to a significant degree.
See, my only thing with Guardians was I was getting frame drops on a PS5, which frankly is not acceptable.
So I think what we're trying to say is that, like, if you're getting Cyberpunk on PC, it isn't as much of a broken mess as it is on everything else. And I think as of right now, it's mostly fully playable without issue.
I would say it's worth $10.
I would say it's worth 30. That would be my main price point for Cyberpunk.
Well, I wouldn't say I not to say that at most it's worth $10, but if you see it at $10, that's a good price for that game, because underneath all of the issues is still a pretty good, really well written video.
Yeah,
game.
The writers did an excellent job. The world builders did an excellent job, and that's where they got the fiction right. Is they got the world right, they got the details correct. The people that made Night City. I feel crushed for the area designers of Night City, because they did an incredible job, right?
Yeah.
Night City is a beautiful, very well realized open world location with nothing to do. Nothing got put in that world because they ran out of time. So the area designers did an incredible job of getting areas to look good and very interesting, and then nothing's
backgrounds.
There. Yeah. No, it. What a game. What a game.
But it demonstrates the point well of you have to make sure you're getting those fiction elements right. And if you get the fiction right and don't run into the bugs, like our first playthroughs of that game, where I think both of us went Nomad, right?
Yes.
And I think, having now played the other intros, Nomad works the best. Maybe Street Kid works pretty well too, but Nomad...
I assumed it would, because just from the place that you start in the game, it makes the most sense in terms of setting up your...
It gives you a journey
motivation
into the city, right? Yeah. Even if it's only 30 minutes long. It's a nice ease into getting to the city.
Yeah.
So there is a nice... I think both of us chose a very good flow for the game, in that we went Nomad, and I think we went very gun-focused builds. We didn't do anything crazy with melee or hacking in our first playthrough, right?
I kind of did that playthrough that I normally do, which is unlock a thing and be like, oh, that looks cool. I wasn't super into... My next run is definitely going to be much more build focused, but my first run was oh, this is cool. What's this do?
Yeah, so I think we stumbled our way into the least buggy path in the game is what I think happened. Where
all of the good karma went into that game, and then all of the bad karma went into Tsushima for me in terms of bugs.
Well, because the gunplay in Cyberpunk is, I think, very solid for an RPG. Yeah. It feels far more impactful than Fallout 4, and there's some specific missions.
Especially for a first attempt, it's pretty solid.
It had AI that is not amazing, but gets the fantasy across of sneaking through a building at night and being able to take people out.
It also had very good level design, from what I remember as well. And level design that kept in line with the world too. There were very few moments where it felt oh, this is a video game level.
And the really cool thing is you could go back and read some of Cyberpunk Red and the rule books and get a feel for the layout and the feeling of the different areas from the Cyberpunk tabletop rules, which is something that was incredibly fun. I can go back and look and draw the connections of Cyberpunk 2077 treats Cyberpunk actual fiction as canon. So you have this whole backlog of cool Cyberpunk fiction if you want to go look at it, which is very interesting.
You could tell that they definitely gave a crap about the source material and wanted to honor it correctly.
That's where most of the development time was spent, in the writing room. Years and years were just getting the concepts down.
And it shows. The writing is some of all the games that I played that year. It's
except for the bit where half the prologue just ends.
Which is, but I have a feeling it's weird. I wonder I think this is going into too much of a cyberpunk conversation, maybe, but I wonder
We
if
gotta
it
have a
would have.
games club about it already. Dang it.
I wouldn't even be able to be for it because I haven't played it myself. But like, I wonder if development in retrospect, obviously, hindsight is always 2020. But if it would be better instead of having those three different starting areas, if they just let you do the whole like intro yourself instead of just being like, oh, you picked your three different things that I guess gives you kind of a start for a little bit until it all becomes the same later, and then you fast forward
Well,
3 months.
that's not
Okay.
the issue is that there's a specific cutscene that happens very early on, which is the one they used in all the trailers of like you and Jackie at like a party
No,
that
yeah,
flashes
yeah.
to all this other stuff. That is in the game, right? That is an
Yes.
in-game cutscene that happens. They made it look like in all the trailers is that those are cut up scenes
Things that you could play, yeah.
that you would
Which
play
we
through.
don't know. At one point, it could have been content that they planned but had to
Yeah,
scrap.
the rumor
Yeah,
is
that's
that
how it works.
that was cut content, not necessarily for the sake of it like being bad or anything, but was cut because they felt the game flowed better at a specific length. Having played it, I think I disagree with that decision. If that is the decision that was made,
Well,
because
it may have just been cut to make it the release date as well. Like we don't.
well, because we don't
we
know,
don't-
right? Like that's
Right.
they
Yeah.
haven't said. But the rumors were never about like making the release. They were more about they wanted to cut the length down so more of the game featured Keanu Reeves as like the star
I-
player percentage wise,
do-
which is just such a weird.
I mean,
I do also
I'm not saying
remember.
I agree with it, but I get it.
I do also remember because I get this also because I remember one. I don't remember the guy's name, but this is someone from CDPR saying this in something regarding the Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk because he was like, we checked stats or whatever, and so many people played The Witcher for like a little bit and then didn't finish it. Like more people, like the amount of people that did not finish The Witcher 3 after starting it was like astronomical compared to other games apparently. So I
They
think
probably
yeah,
wanted to speed up the beginning of
exactly
Cyberpunk.
exactly.
Yep.
But as a
Mhm.
result, like it's just so like it feels like a joke a little bit. It's just so weirdly stilted. Like you should be able to play all that. It's the immersive game. You should be
Right.
able, let me be this man's friend instead of making
Well,
me
because it
watch
makes
me
it feel
become his
like
friend.
there aren't really other characters that can be like your companion in the story because all of the companion
Mhm.
missions happen once and then are done, right? Like it's just you don't ever go any
You're not gonna
further.
get
That is a game that felt
you-
like it could have used a Skyrim, Elder Scrolls, like
I was just about to say you're not going to
bring
get a
one
Lydia.
person with you.
You're not going to get a Lydia in this game or whatever her name is. Is that right?
Yeah, Lydia's right.
Am I right? Okay,
Uh,
just checking.
But I would have loved the ability to like call up the relationship candidates or like people that probably just the relationship candidates, honestly, because you could just have them be your companions. And then
Dude, busting up some bandit camps with like, oh my god, with Jackie or something would have been awesome. To just
yeah,
like,
it's
hey,
just
I
like
need
let
some
us do
help.
the open world activities with a bud because that makes it so much fun.
Yeah.
And I think that would have helped them have that world come across as more genuine rather than a game. Which it kind of felt like it was becoming
Which is
very
what they were
gamified.
selling. Which
Yeah.
is what they were trying to sell. Yeah.
Which was the premise of the cell. So that was an issue with Cyberpunk. All right, moving past Cyberpunk, we can have an easy slide here to The Witcher because it's CD Projekt Red.
Yes.
The Witcher, I think, is our first thing to talk about. Aside from Gundam, didn't come from Gundam started as a TV series, right? Not a manga, just to
Yeah,
make
it started
sure.
as a TV series.
Okay, and then mangas were
to
made
make
after the
toys.
fact, so it was a TV series.
I do want to start, if that's okay. I do want to start the Witcher discussion with. It really speaks to how well they introduce the world and everything. When the third one is by far the most popular one, it's the one that like most people started with. It's like the
Yeah.
thing that got them introduced
Yeah.
to the series, and it's the third one in a
Mhm.
series of games that are all based on different decisions, and it's can get super complicated with different like warring factions and characters and all this stuff. The fact that they're able to like ease you into it really, really well, considering there's so much history, is really impressive.
And what
To
I have
the
to give
point
props
where-
to. Oh, go ahead, Brett.
To the point where like people, like at least most of the people that I've seen, like don't even feel a desire or like need to go back to,
I
to
haven't.
the first two. They just
I
feel completely
haven't.
satisfied. And then it's funny because oftentimes they do, and then it's like, oh, these games are old.
The Witcher 2 is
much.
still excellent. The Witcher 2 has aged very well, I think.
Witcher
but
1 is
The Witcher 1 is wild.
Yeah.
That game is very strange. So what I wanted to mention is that like I've played all three of the Witcher games. I did not finish Witcher 1 because that game is a nightmare on many levels. It's still good, but you got to have a very high tolerance for jank to play that game.
Eurojank, baby.
That is a Eurojank game. Witcher 2 is just a very solid game that plays very differently from 3, but it is just very good. What I loved is specifically, I think the thing that makes it very easy to get into the game if you're a returning player and if you're not a returning player is when they have you brought into that bit where you shave at the start and you get the selection of if you want to make a world state just in the game by narrating what happened in Witcher 2, and you can skip that if you didn't play the game, and it'll set you up in like the default world state that doesn't bring any Witcher 2 callbacks back, so you don't need to know anything going in. And what I really liked about that compared to a game like Mass Effect is that you did not need to at any point actually upload a save to do anything and get like all the callbacks that you wanted. You could just select the options. And like I think that works so well because it encourages you to replay the game with different things without having to replay the second game to get the right stuff to happen, which is great. You have this issue with Mass Effect and Dragon Age where if you don't do that, there are a lot of things tied to side quests and whatnot, specifically in Mass Effect 2 to 3, that can just like irreversibly mess up your game if you didn't do them. Right? Especially in the case of 3. So I really feel like that is something that should be taken going forward in most other RPG franchises that are doing the like long-running import your save thing is allow you to do that save state creation at the start so you can make a save state, especially so you can just experiment. Like if I've played Mass Effect 2, I want to be able to see what the result of different choices would have been without playing the entire game for the 10th time, right?
Doesn't Dragon Age Keep or whatever it's called allow you to do that?
It did. Dragon Age Keep is no longer available, to my knowledge.
Of course.
It was a very time-limited thing. So I'm saying put it in the game. Dragon Age Keep did allow that, and it was very neat because it had like this whole stained glass aesthetic that was very cool. But it was time-locked, and I don't believe is working anymore, or if it is still working, I think you have to upload a save.
Why is it time-locked?
Well, because of servers. Some weird server shenanigans. Because Dragon Age Inquisition is an old game now. It is 2014.
God,
right?
don't say that. Don't say that. Don't
7
say
years.
That. Don't make me feel Don't
So-
make me feel old.
But I think that means you really feel the impact in The Witcher, especially because Witcher is nice enough to not have any of that directly affect the outcome of the main story.
Mm-hmm.
No decisions you made in 2 are going to directly influence. They might make some things harder or easier, or open up some other quests, but they're not going to make the ending of the game or lock an ending out if you didn't do them. You still mostly get to experience everything that 3 has to offer and actually go through and play everything. Yeah. Which I think works really well. I also think it rides the line very well of what to take from an adaptation, where it's taking from a book series, it's acting as not a specific time point in any of these books, because for people that don't know, the Witcher games are not set in a specific time point relative to the books. They're not technically, they're in like this weird limbo state of the books are canon to the game, but the game is not canon to the books kind of thing. So you can play the game without having read the books, but if you go back and read the books, things fit naturally into place.
The games are almost like a what-if scenario in comparison to the...
They're like a what-if ending to the book series, because from my knowledge, I haven't read the final books. I've read like the first 2, which are very good.
And I've watched the show.
The show is very faithful to the books. The show is like very faithful to the books.
And also very good.
And also
if you haven't seen it.
But I think it's a good example of how to treat multimedia, because it does a great job of making sure that the show is different from the books, the games are different from the books, but they're all very Witcher, right? You can identify from the tone, from the colors, from the world design, that everything is The Witcher, right? without you needing to actually have all the same events line up in every version of the game of the franchise. So,
Well, also, like, how often do you find something that can bridge the gap between hardcore fans of the franchise and also allow new people to like come into that world? Like, that's such a difficult. And you were just saying it's such a difficult like balance to get right, and they just I feel like they kind of nailed it. Like they really
The Witcher
did.
is a rare franchise where you could start The Witcher with any of the games, really, because 2 was not meant to be necessarily a follow-up to 1 for the games. You could start at the books, just read them in order, or you could start at the TV show, and no matter what path you choose, it's still going to make sense relative to everything else.
Yeah.
Which is great. And you have like the option of how you want to start. Like if you're a fan of TV shows, you can go watch the series. If you're a fan of reading, read the books.
It's one of the few examples where it's crossed into almost every single medium and done well. I do know there was an old Witcher movie that apparently is a goofy.
There was an old goofy, like I think it's Norwegian Witcher.
Yeah,
I want to say it was Norwegian or Swiss, but very old Witcher show.
Yeah. But no, it's all done, and it's not like it's all done by, the same people, right? Like the show and the showrunners are very different people from the books and from the games and stuff like that. Like CD Projekt Red had nothing to do with the show. From what I understand, the writer didn't really have much to do with the game either. He kind of gave his blessing and just let them do whatever.
Well, all right. The writing situation is weird. So,
well, yes.
Sapkowski,
originally when Witcher 3 came out, recently in the past couple of years, things are more complicated.
Yeah, Sapkowski gave the rights to CD Projekt Red, believing that games were a bad medium and that it would not succeed. So
he basically asked for like a straight up like payment and not
from my knowledge that is what happened, or a very small percentage.
He didn't ask for royalties, or
he didn't think they were going to succeed.
It's a very small percent. Yeah.
So when they did, he then got very angry when The Witcher 3 is like one of the best selling games of all time, highest reviewed, and he was like, "Oh, I should be making more money from this."
It's your mistake. That was on you.
But he hasn't been involved. He hasn't done anything. So yeah, it's a weird situation. There's a ton about that you can go read up on that I think would do a far better job of explaining it than I would.
And all this came out during like the big sort of advertising rush for Cyberpunk, and it was the one thing they didn't lie about. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I don't think it doesn't really reflect poorly on CD Projekt because like
no,
they're not the ones.
They accidentally made a really good game, I guess.
Not accidentally.
Well, from his point of view, from the author's point of view.
Because I mean, if you're a business person and this author is offering you the rights to this at a very low rate,
of course you're gonna take it.
Why would you not take that, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So,
well, especially because they were such a small studio back then.
Mm-hmm.
And I also want to point out, I don't think
a lot of money.
Sapkowski is not a struggling author or anything. He is.
No,
he's fine. He's well off. So
it's a very successful book series.
It would make sense if this were a situation where like George Lucas never made any money from Star Wars, right, and was just like destitute on the streets and didn't get any money from it. Then we'd be like, okay, what? This is weird, right? This is not okay.
I mean, George Lucas, he's not like that well off, right? Like he's not. I mean, he's comfortable.
He's comfortable, right? And I think that's what he.
I'm kidding.
Let me tell you about Jar Jar.
He's comfortable, right? And that's where you want to be. So
he's comfortable in his chair when he's directing a movie.
In his chair made out of gold bars. All right. Anything else to say about The Witcher?
Go play it if you haven't.
I do gotta hand some credit over as well to the DLC area design. Is I think a huge part of the success there, because the DLC areas all feel very different from the main game, which I think does a great job of like giving you that Shivering Isles feeling from Oblivion of this very different landscape and situation.
Well, I mean, part of Hearts of Stone was like it was literally like a Ocean's 11 style like heist. If you remember, like you had to go out.
I mean, don't spoil it for anyone that hasn't played it, but
I'm giving vague I'm not saying specific plot
Yeah,
points, but there's a section where you have to go out and like hire a bunch of guys for this, for this heist job and stuff like that. And they all have their different skills, and they even have like someone describing each person. It has a little montage of them like showing off their particular, skill and stuff like that. It was very like heist movie-esque, and it was a cool kind of break from like typical Witcher stuff.
Yeah, which works very well. You get that nice thematic difference in every DLC.
Yeah,
which I need to still go finish Blood and Wine because
I haven't even done Blood and Wine. I want to do it so bad, dude.
I know I'm gonna do a full playthrough when I do Blood and Wine. I just do everything, so I'm preparing.
That was
for
the plan. That was the plan, and then I think something else came out around the time.
I think Cyberpunk came out.
No, I did this after Cyberpunk. I did this much after Cyberpunk. I did my playthrough like a couple months ago, actually.
Really? All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think the next thing that was on our list to talk about is Halo.
Yes.
Because we don't talk about that enough on this show. We really don't.
It's not a Halo podcast.
It is definitely not a Halo podcast.
And I do think I want to focus this discussion around the Bungie games, not the 343 ones, because we've talked a lot about 343.
I do want to mention one thing with 343 in terms of world building, though.
Okay.
If that's okay with you. The one mistake that 343 made that Bungie didn't make is that they leaned a little too heavily into books and other things to kind of tell certain parts of the story.
They made the Destiny mistake.
Yes.
Of leaving all the story outside of the game.
Especially with 5, because you had to have played Spartan Ops to understand the story in 5, especially the beginning. And if you remember, nobody played Spartan Ops.
And
Spartan Ops is a top-down shooter, isn't it? Like
Spartan Ops
was the side game mode of 4.
I think there is also a Spartan Ops that is a top-down shooter.
Spartan Assault.
Oh, Spartan Assault. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Very, very difficult to confuse. I don't know how you did that.
I played Spartan Ops. I played like 2 Spartan Ops missions. They feel like Destiny Strikes, like the really boring Destiny Strikes.
Well, because weren't they also locked to co-op?
No. You can play them.
No, they're just all on reused either multiplayer maps or like.
So just like a confusing thing, because I remember I played Halo 4 through with a good friend of mine, and we did some Spartan Ops, and the entire time it was like making sure we were in the lobby and whatnot. So I thought it was locked to multiplayer, so I never attempted to do them.
It might used to have been in like Halo 4, but I know in MCC I'm pretty sure you could just do it by yourself.
Yeah.
Which is where I didn't play it.
Yeah.
Remember, we didn't get Firefight because we got this instead.
Yeah, just little Spartan Ops.
It's like, oh, how did Halsey get her arm cut off in 5? You gotta play Spartan Ops to figure it out.
I don't care.
Who's Jewel and Dama? Oh, you gotta play Spartan Ops.
Jewel Dama?
This is like telling me to go play the Metal Gear VR missions to understand what's happening.
It's the equivalent of like if a game has lore that you want to know more about, you have to actively leave the game and go onto a separate website to read about it. Wouldn't that suck?
Yeah.
All right. So I do want to. We've talked a lot again about 343's failures, which is a repeated thing with Halo. I do want to talk about Bungie's successes because Bungie is the group that made Halo into the Titan that it is, and I want to give them a lot of credit for establishing this kind of shooter franchise in a way that has lasted for so long and that still feels good to play if you go back and play the 20-year-old game. I think they should get a lot of credit for that, and
absolutely.
I want to know where those people went.
They made that really awesome game where you get to watch all your AI buddies do the shooter game for you from your speeder bikes 30 feet into the air.
Disintegration or
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, I want to disintegrate it, all right. Don't you worry.
And I do think that's a good example of how to also do books, because in the Bungie era of Halo, the books were side stories, right? They were stories involving different characters usually, or if they were involving Chief, they weren't important to the games to a point where like you needed to read them to understand what Chief was thinking.
The only one that is like, and it's not even the same story of the game. It's like a more detailed retelling. There's one that is just Halo 1, but in book form. That's the same length as all the other novels. It's really good. It's just like you don't have to read it to understand what's going on in Halo 1 because the story of Halo 1 is like you can summarize that game in like a paragraph.
Is it
eh,
is it also? Oh, sorry, Reese gonna say something.
no, I was filling the space with random mouth
Oh,
noises. I wasn't
okay,
actually.
gotcha. So then I'm gonna take over.
Yes,
I feel
please.
like a lot of where the heavy like when the series became very not lore heavy, but started to have a lot of lore. I feel like Halo 2 really was the start of
Oh,
that.
for sure.
Because
Yeah,
I mean, the
yeah.
very beginning of Halo 2, like the very beginning,
It's like a 20-minute cutscene.
you probably, yeah, it's a 20-minute cutscene. You probably get more story and more information in that 20 minutes than the entirety of like Halo Combat Evolved.
Yeah, yeah.
And not to like bring down Halo Combat Evolved at all. It's just very, at the end of the day, it's very simple, very
Hmm.
well done, but very simple. Whereas like Halo 2, like again, just the beginning of Halo 2, that 20-minute cutscene kind of like changes everything you thought you knew, which is such a bold move for a sequel in the first
Yeah.
20 minutes. Like, God, like I don't feel like that moment
Oh, 'cause
gets
it does a
like
great job of
enough credit.
expanding the world,
Yeah.
right? Where you learn in Halo 1 very little about what's going on outside of your immediate sphere of knowledge, right? Like
Right.
you know what's going on the planet you're on, and you have this vague understanding of a war happening, right?
If you want an example of how to do Abby from Last of Us 2 correctly, Halo 2 is a perfect example of how to do it correctly.
Because like the Arbiter and Master Chief are, at least in I think our generation, one of the iconic duos of
Yes.
games,
For
right?
sure. Yeah.
Where anyone that grew up with an
Yes.
Xbox remembers R being the Chief, right? So
Let's go to Arby's.
let's get RB and the Chief.
Doesn't it kind of surprise you that there was never any kind of like crossover between
Hey,
Arby's
I'm not
and
gonna say there never was because I feel like there might have been.
there might have been. Oh, I have to look this up now.
I don't know, but I feel like it might have happened because Arby's does a lot of video game stuff, so I wouldn't be surprised. But I do think they made a really iconic kind of paired narrative there.
Mhm.
And especially having like the co-op partner be the other character is such a cool thing that, man, I wish more games would have that setup where you can go play them single player with this AI partner and maybe pick which one you want to play, but then you can do the co-op and then play like the other character in this duo game and get an actual
Yeah.
unique experience, even if it's just like having a different arm look, right?
But the
That's
gameplay
enough.
was also well, but the gameplay was very different. Like I remember the first mission you play as the Arbiter. Like it starts off as a stealth mission, which is not really something you'd gotten in a Halo.
Well,
game
the missions are, but when you're in the co-op missions,
Yeah, and in
you're
Halo
doing the same
3,
mission.
when you're
Right.
together, then at that point, I think you both just have like whatever flashlight. Like, I don't even think Halo 3 has a flashlight. I just think Halo 2 is the one where Arby has the active camouflage.
Yeah, the
and Master
unique
Chief has the
gear.
flashlight.
Yeah.
But it does such a great job of establishing those characters, and I think it also does a great job of hooking people in to want to know more, to sell those other books and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those setups that works really well as a franchise setup.
I can't understate that first 20 minutes enough though. Like or overstate it enough, excuse me. Just like there's so much good like and I don't want to give away. I mean, it's the first 20 minutes, so I think we can
It's
kind of
Halo
talk
2,
about it.
dude. Have
It's
you
Halo.
seen the videos of what Times Square looked like when Halo 2 was about to come out? It's if you don't know it, then you're.
Hey, if you don't
been,
know
like,
it, go
unfrozen
stop
at
and go play
Carbon.
Halo 2 right now because it's really good, and then come back.
Yeah.
Right, but like Master Chief getting the medal at the same time the Arbiter's getting the brand and stuff like that. Like it's just I can't. It's such a good sequence. Oh my god.
I told you to wear something nice.
It's such a great. I love how it's a franchise that is like at its core an arena shooter that has this detailed narrative going in that I think works really well. And I think it's an example of if you take that and compare it to like Doom 2016, you get the kind of different paths they take where Halo still has proper cutscenes. They still have a more direct narrative, and Doom is a lot more open-ended and how it handles that with less.
Because it doesn't want any pesky
Yeah, it
story
doesn't
to
want
get in
any
the way of
anything
you.
to get in the way. Whereas like in Halo, the story is part of the driving factor of like I want to know what happens next, so I'm going to keep playing the game, and then I really enjoyed what happens next, so I'm going to replay it and try to beat it on the highest difficulty for bragging rights, right?
Right.
Which is just the kind of thing where like that's how you have a campaign that is relatively short, because all the Halo campaigns I think are under 8 hours pretty handily.
Something like that, yeah. There's not a
I think
lot
maybe
to
3 is a
look
little
at,
bit
I don't
longer,
think.
but all of them are not particularly long. I know Reach especially is very short, but
Very short,
the
yeah.
missions are all so good and so replayable that you get
Mm.
so much of a
If the game's pacing benefits from a shorter runtime, that's fine.
like that's
Especially if
why
they
you don't hear
especially
people
if they have Halo
complaining.
multiplayer. Especially if they have Halo multiplayer and Forge and whatever else.
I think that's
Fireblade.
why
to
you never heard
complement it.
anyone complaining about Halo games having a lack of content compared to Call of Duty.
Exactly.
Because
yeah.
the campaigns might have been short, but they were so good, and they're very
Yeah.
replayable because of the skulls and whatnot. So
I'm gonna mention again, Halo 3's pacing is like one of the most perfectly paced video games I've ever played.
It's
Yeah.
It breezes by at a beautiful, just like such. I'm gonna stop right now before I go off on a tangent.
it's excellent though. They're all excellent.
Yes.
I think that really shows like why people still care about Halo, and why even after a game that is not great in Halo 5 and was enormously terribly received for the story, people still want to play the next one because
It's not that bad.
yeah.
I
No,
don't.
it's
I was talking about the story,
story,
Wyatt. I was
come
talking about the
on.
story. I know you don't want to
There's
say
that-
that story's not that
yeah.
bad.
No. No. I will not defend Halo 5 story as long as I live. I will not. It is the worst. I am totally there with everyone on that.
I just wanted to make sure because I
It's-
knew
yeah,
you would not
'cause-
be able to live with yourself if you'd said that.
No. I would not. No. The story is just straight garbage dumpster fire behind an Arby's, like terrible.
No, this is a dumpster fire behind a Taco Bell. I mean, we gotta go deep for that one. All right.
part of I think what makes, because we have like the books and the little like they've done some like mini series esque things for Halo also, and those have been, they haven't been bad, they've been like okay. I think one of the things that Halo has done more than, or at least in a different and like less like weird way than the other things that we've talked about so far, is just its advertising campaigns. For a while there were like
Oh, dude.
second to none.
The
Oh,
yeah.
Believe campaign
The
was
Believe campaign and the
It's one of the
campaigns
most-
for ODST and Reach are
not
like
even like it's almost like calling the Believe campaign like a marketing campaign almost does it a disservice.
It was like a short
because
film.
it's exactly
It's
yeah.
such a beautiful like just sequence of.
I think
of
the only
shorts.
games that have kind of compared to me is I to a degree Final Fantasy games have always kind of had that. Some
Yeah,
of them
yeah.
do it better than others, and I think most of them don't do it particularly successfully. But the one game that I think I would give a lot of credit to for doing the same thing is Star Wars: The Old Republic, the MMO. I'm sure, Wyatt, do you remember the original cutscenes that they are the CGI trailers they rendered?
Well, because they were done
for
by
SWTOR.
Blur, right?
Yeah,
And anything that Blur touches is incredible.
because they just
Like,
they just released 4K versions of them for the anniversary
yeah.
of that game, and they're gorgeous. And those cutscenes are incredible.
I don't understand how Blur does what they do. Like, it just, I don't think, have they ever done any bad work ever? Like, it just feels
I
like
doubt
every
it.
time they do work, they're just incredible. Just amazing.
They've got very good direction, and I think they probably have a very good communication with the studio they're working with to make sure that it's matching visions, right?
Yeah. Well, and also camera work, even for a CG, like an all CG thing, like camera work is still really
Well,
important.
it's more
They
important
nail
because
it.
you can do
Yeah.
anything, right? With CG,
And so
you can put the
you can't
camera
go over the
in
board.
places that
can't
you couldn't have it. So
you can't go overboard with it though, and they ride that line.
yeah,
really
you got to
well.
know where
We're gonna do some things that like you can't do with a normal camera, but we're also not gonna go like insane like Transformers moving the camera everywhere. You can't tell what's happening. Like
Yeah, I'd recommend anyone who hasn't seen them to go watch the SWTOR trailers that were originally
And-
aired, even if you have no interest in the game, because
and
they're excellent.
if you're a Halo fan, the redone cutscenes for Halo 2, they also did those, and they are absolutely beautiful.
They're very pretty, yeah.
Oh my lord.
It's just a franchise that I think has been handled very well in the past, and hopefully Infinite stiffens up a bit and
Because I
picks up
sent
them
one
up
of
by their
them.
bootstraps.
I sent one of them earlier today, but they have a similar marketing campaign going on. At least like
Yeah, they
one
do.
ad where they have like that
I still haven't seen that yet. I've been
it's
so busy recently.
spoilers for a commercial, but they have like it's like the similar line of thought where it's like instead of believe, it's become, because now it's like, oh, you're becoming like what Master Chief is in all these like books or whatever, where you could do like all the like memes of like lore accurate Master Chief, and it's like some guy in matchmaking getting like a full magazine of quick scopes in a row, and then like a 360 and just like kills the whole
Yeah.
team or something.
Yeah.
Um, and they have like this progression of like what's supposed to be like heroes through humanity's time, where you have like ancient people out in the fields with sheep and like fire, and it's like, oh, there's noises out on the horizon, and then there's somebody like the housemaiden or something who's the guy, the soldier, is being healed on the floor by the house doctor, but the Nazis are pushing in, so I gotta pick up the rifle and defend my house with by myself. And then you got people pushing into space and rescuing people from the ocean, and like slowly over time as they get further into the future, they have like, oh, that's like a prototype like Hornet from Halo 3. That's what's going to become the Hornet. And there's just little inklings of stuff like that
That's
slowly as they get further into future.
that's what's gonna become the Hornet.
Oh, I
Great job
believe that will
calling
become the
attention
Hornet.
to.
Believed in that.
And then they all like they all do the same like run forward thing, and they all like turn to Master Chief, and he beats up some brute, and it's so sick, and it's all live action. It's
Dude, I gotta
so
watch
cool looking.
this. I gotta
It's
watch
it's
this.
it's not as cool as the things that they did for Reach or
It's
ODST or
reaching that
3.
though.
It's getting there. It's on the same wavelength, and that just makes me so happy. Because that, like, sure, if you played the games, you kind of get the sense of like what like from Marines say and what like the elites say, that like Master Chief has this aura about him, whether he's a demon or he's the guy that saves everybody's butts, and just helps everyone all the time. Um, but with the Believe campaign, it's like this guy is being elevated to just like actual messiah status, because he is the guy that has saved humanity multiple times over.
He's the Halo
And
guy. He's the John Halo guy.
he's John Halo. He's he's saved everyone so many times over that like somehow somewhere in this fictional like Halo museum in 2550, who gives a crap, some man was so swept away by him that he put together this little action figure display of a battle that happened, stuff like that, or like all the like what it takes to become an ODST, to make sure that you know how badass they really are, and they're
Or
going through all this like crazy training.
The guy was talking about like, oh, we were being pinned down, and we had like two clips for an assault rifle, like 2 frag grenades, and like 3 shotgun rounds or whatever. And they were
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like,
yeah.
we were fine because the chief was there. We knew he was coming.
Exactly.
Like, oh, dude.
And they were all
Dude.
live action. Like they made a real warthog for this stuff. Like they
They had a
actually
real
cared when they were
spiker.
making
They had
it.
a real spiker, like accurate, like ah!
It was so, because that's another thing. It's just so cool that people actually like the things in the game are well thought out enough that you can make real versions of them. It all ties together in all these ways that, like, yeah, it's an ad campaign, whatever, but it elevates
Beyond
the
that. No,
characters.
it's beyond that at this point, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
it elevates everything to become beyond that.
And
And
let's
go.
go for it. No, you go for it.
That's why I keep hoping they do more for like, if they just have like just one more big story trailer for before
Yep.
the main story comes out, and then before they just start making trailers for more cosmetics that you'll only be able to buy for $45.
Yeah, that'd be a shame.
Let's also not forget I Love Bees, if you guys remember I Love Bees, which was the Halo 2 campaign.
Yes.
The Halo 2 marketing campaign, which
Yes.
is, what was it? They flashed like the I Love Bees website for a second at the Halo 2 reveal or something like that, which led you to a broken website that would then slowly give out coordinates to different payphones. And then when you pick up the payphone, it would like give you bits of lore on Halo 2
Yep.
or events leading up to Halo 2. And then
Dude.
if you went to all of the different like coordinates and stuff, you were able to go to a theater where they would let you play Halo 2 early. which
Dude,
is the
I
coolest
remember.
thing I've ever heard.
I still want to see. I wish there were more ad campaigns like this, but it's hard to imagine what franchises can get away with it, right?
Mhm.
Where I
These
remember
days, yeah.
Vampire the Masquerade 2, the one that hasn't come out yet, had that ad campaign where they made a fake mobile app that was like Tinder, but it was for vampires, but nothing ever linked it directly to the Masquerade until they started dropping things in the app and had like a trailer of a dude that would like have AI chat things start messaging you on that app of like, oh, this thing's going down and it's going to be like you need to stay away from the moon or something like that. It is this crazy ARG phone app that was happening to lead up to that launch, and it was such a fun thing that, like, man, I wish more devs would do that, but it is a lot of work, so I get why it doesn't.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah,
very expensive.
Yeah,
but it's like super. I want to say it's super worth it because a lot of the time it's like you just never forget that sort of thing, and it's always looked at as like that's like not only is that like obviously a big monetary and like effort investment, but that's like you can't do that for. I mean, I guess you could do that for like Call of Duty or something, but it's just I don't know. I feel like
it's got to be a franchise that has gravitas to it, right?
It needs to have like it needs to be serious enough on its own, but it also like the people making it need to actually give a crap. About
it's like a wrestling debut.
It is
right?
like a wrestling debut.
It's like when you get Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson to show up at the same thing. You got to if you tease that, you have to deliver, right?
It's like when you build for months that Matt Hardy over all of his social medias and all of his YouTube channels and things is building up that he's going to be the exalted one, only for him to finally answer the call of the Young Bucks the hour before the episode of Dynamite comes up, only for what's that? He's not the exalted one. He's just there, and Brody Lee is the exalted one instead. It's exactly like
it's
that.
It's that, but with Halo.
Yes. Yes.
And so I think the franchises you've got right now that could do that, Mass Effect maybe, right? It's hard to say with BioWare anything right now. If the game is good, you can pull it off. If the game's not good, well, don't.
Yeah. They won't even try if it's not good.
You can do it with Elder Scrolls pretty easily, I think. Mm-hmm. Elder Scrolls is still a franchise that, like, no matter what, people are going to play that game. To hell, I'm still playing Skyrim literally earlier today. So that franchise has a lot of longevity.
It's me back. I hear the siren call of Jeremy Soule.
Wyatt, I have 700 something mods installed right now.
Jesus Christ.
Hey, and it's only crashed once in like 30 hours. So,
awesome.
That's better than most AAA games.
It's impressive. But yeah, I think you got to limit it to a franchise that has enough weight behind it.
Yeah.
To really deliver.
I feel like whatever Kojima does next could totally have
that
as a part of it.
Kojima could do it. I think Capcom could do it with a lot of their franchises. Devil May Cry would be good for that.
They attempted to do something like that with PT.
They did. That was Konami, right?
I said attempt because the game never came out.
Yeah.
But I mean, if Silent Hills had come out, like that would have been probably one of the greatest like marketing
incredible
campaigns
reveal
ever.
And we gotta give credit to the man for Kojima again, just being somehow the most like absolutely insane predictive wizard ever to be born onto this earth, for somehow timing it just a day incorrectly before the actual announcement that it was going to be a Silent Hills game, because that someone beat it to the point where they could see that it was a Silent Hills teaser only a day before the announcement, and it would have been out for weeks before that.
Yeah,
he's insane.
I hope that when he passes, we can get we can just get an autopsy of his brain to figure out exactly what the hell's going on up there.
I wouldn't even be surprised.
So dark.
I wouldn't be surprised if instead of us ever finding out that he ever dies in the future, he just disappears and we lose track of.
Kojima is a person that vanishes in the Bermuda Triangle, right? Like
exactly.
He disappears.
There will not be a body.
He disappears like a Jedi when they die.
more powerful than you can ever imagine.
All right.
Exactly.
So with that, I think we've hit most of our points today that we want to hit on. I'm gonna save the artistic atmosphere stuff for when Alex is here, being our resident
that
art
makes sense.
person.
He is an art person.
Our art person, especially because I did also want to talk about Elder Scrolls, but I think I'm gonna save that for when he is here as well. Seeing that is that
designated
favorite franchise,
art
so.
lad. Designated art lad and Skyrim lad.
I do art too, guys. Jeez, thanks.
Wait, what's your name again? Who are you?
I don't know. Kojima?
I thought you were on the wrestling show, right?
So I snuck onto the other podcast. Sorry.
Yeah, don't just talk about like wrestling and like some like combat flight game or something.
It's some
Dan hasn't.
stupid garbage.
Right. So
you're a Ubisoft fan, I think.
Oh, definitely.
Great. Before this fully devolves, I'm gonna get us to shout outs so we can finish this before we all lose ourselves to the giggle monster. Who wants to go first for a shout out?
I'll go first. Shout out to this Halo lore book that I got when I was much younger, and I think it was leading up to Halo 5's release or Halo 4's release. I can't remember, but it's got some really cool like painted artwork and just lays out all of the information of Halo's lore in a really like visually interesting way. I was showing you guys some of the art from it. Like it's gorgeous. It looks really cool.
Halo concept art is also really just always beautiful.
Oh yeah, and it is probably made for like people that are younger than 23, but I still think it's really interesting, and I want to give it like a full read through at some point because there's still a lot of like Halo lore that I don't know, so it'll be nice to catch up.
All right, Brett, you got something fun?
It's not fun, but it is very good. Shout out to the fact that I need to after this go up and get another stack of tissues so I can prepare myself to watch the next probably only episode of Violet Evergarden later tonight.
Oh no!
Because I've been watching that with some other boys, and we can literally only make it through like maybe like 2 episode chunks before everyone's noses are running and we're all crying horribly.
See, I thought y'all were crying from the Cowboy Bebop.
No, I was screaming.
I am crying for a very different reason for that.
Yes.
I'm saying a eulogy.
Go watch if you're gonna watch something on Netflix. I'm pretty sure Violet Evergarden's on Netflix.
It is. So is Arcane, which is also very good.
And the original Cowboy Bebop.
Good, yeah. And the original Cowboy Bebop and the movie. But yeah, Violet Evergarden, very good. I'm almost done. I cry every time.
All right. Well, Brett, it's thematic because I'm giving my shout out to a show as well. Amazon's Wheel of Time is a high budget fantasy show that is actually good. It's very rare for that to happen. It's very different from the books, but in a good way. It's different in the way that they adapted it for TV, in the way that made the best sense for TV, and not feeling this like obedience to the books that was unnecessary. So it's been very good to watch, and I think it's one of those shows that also thankfully hit the thing where like you get a few episodes in and realize it's getting better every episode and not worse, which is very rare.
God.
Like I was iffy on the first episode, but the 4th episode was really good. And it's now I'm gonna be watching that show till it's done. So I think it's been a good week for new shows. I've also heard Arcane's very good. So with that, we're gonna sign off here. As always, podcast Tuesday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern time. You can expect the Guardians of the Galaxy Games Club likely on Thursday. That's probably when that'll be on YouTube. We're recording it earlier than that, but that's probably when it'll be on YouTube. And then we have our Gamescast Games Club coming up, as well as any Game Awards stuff. Next episode's going to be our Game Awards predictions show, which is going to be fun as always. With that, we will see you next week. Have a good morning, evening, wherever you are.
Oh boy. What a Halo podcast. Truly, what a Halo
There's just so much to say. I can't help myself.
It's one of the not like few, but like 10 solid things that like
Handful.
mostly have in common.